The question we've got up there is, how do I find a great developer? www.alliancesoftware.com. No, just kidding. I'll just brief you on my background. So I have run roughly 40 projects over the last sort of 20 years, and most of those being offshore development. And the reason why, mostly, is because of a shoestring budget. So I needed to make things work and I needed to get them off the ground, and I didn't have the budget to work locally, so I looked at overseas options. And obviously I have a bias, and I'll declare that now. I do now work for Alliance, and actually most of my development is now done in-house, in-house with Alliance. So that's an evolution, and you probably see through my project the reasons why I've sort of come around to that point. So what are my options for developers? It's key when you're not thinking of what the options are, but what the purpose is. So what's my development for? Is it an MVP? So you need something just produced very quickly and cheaply to prove a concept, to prove an assumption. Or is it mission critical? Are you developing something that your whole business is going to be revolved around? Depends on what it is as to what developer choice you should look at, and what's an optimal developer in which to put on that project. The first one we'll look at is overseas individual. So an overseas individual is basically a developer, a coder that's sitting somewhere outside of Australia. And I've had experiences in probably about 20 countries, including Palestine, Bangladesh, India, China, Russia, New Zealand, US, and throughout various other Asian countries. And basically, in terms of the development costs, so you may be able to find someone at $25 through one of these countries versus Australian dollar versus $100 Australian if you're developing here in Australia. Just on the dollars, most of the developers will work in US currency. So although they may give you a fixed price, just consider there's going to be variations in the currency, so your project may end up being more expensive or less, depending on the currency fluctuations. So obviously the pros are the cost per hour, but you need to consider that any development project has a suite of staff that support it. You know, we talked previously about a BA, about UX, about design. They're all part of the development process, but you're specifically talking about the development or the developer cost. So although it seems cheap as a rate, the initial price, there's other factors that need to come into play in terms of the overall cost. In terms of my experience, it's a temporary relationship. They're not going to be an ongoing, long-term partner in your business or in your development. If something better comes along, then you basically either shove to the side or communication breaks down. It's also slow. It's extremely slow, and this is what everyone faces in terms of overseas development, no matter whether you do it at some of the level that I have, you know, when you're talking a few $100s for a development versus millions of dollars, it's slow. It's a slow process. You're trying to overcome things like language barriers. You're trying to overcome that interpretation of the specifications, and generally they're just producing slow code. So the project on average would probably take 40% longer than if you're developing with a local developer. And you have to bring your own skills. So you have to bring the project management, you have to bring the BA and everything else that circles the developer. Some of the great experience is around the simple work. I engaged a Macedonian developer and designer, and she was producing a 30-page digital magazine which got published on the iOS platform, which actually only cost me $200 a month, and in relative terms it would have cost me $4,000 a month to do it in Australia. The quality, I reckon, was about 95% of the difference, so there's only 5% difference in terms of the quality between those prices. And once again, it's on the lower end of scale, so lower skills, that you actually get a great experience with overseas development. On the other hand, if you find a good coding developer or engineer, they're there for one of two reasons. Generally, they've got a day job, and they're working the freelance type of work as just extra pocket money, or they're actually using it as part of a learning experience. If they wish to use a learn a new code, they'll actually just apply for a job, see a job, put in their bid, get that, and actually use it as part of their learning experience. So you're actually basically a tuition point with your project. It's happened to me probably 3 times in terms of development, and with an individual developer, and that is that they get good, and they're an entrepreneur because they want to work from themselves, and then they realise after a while, I'm getting all this good work and I seem to be getting a lot of work. What I'll do is I'll put someone under me. I'll employ someone under me. So they've turned into basically a small firm. And the moment that happens, and it's happened 3 times, the quality drops. In fact, there was one experience where I used a Palestine developer, and he was really good. He was really good, and he was smart and he was quick, and it was like, here we go. This is the developer I'm going to have for life. And then I had a bigger project, and it was $20,000 project, which I was doing for a Melbourne company. And I said, let's do this. We can do this together. This is a good project. We work together. It ended up, he actually subcontracted an Indian company. And eventually, we worked in over the first couple of weeks to a point where he was saying, oh look, just talk straight to ST. And eventually, he backed out of it. I didn't talk to him, and I spoke to ST. He just took his cut, and that was it. So you've just got to be aware that, look, I give him a pat on the back for being an entrepreneur and taking on, a bigger, trying to grow their business. But the net result is that, the quality drops at that point. So you've also got, it's a dilution of talent, and it still lacks the key staff. So you're still not going to get the project managers and BA and UX with that type of firm. In fact, often larger firms that take on overseas development, what they actually do is ultimately ship people from here in Australia over to the development factory to basically oversee it. So that's happened quite often in terms of trying to get the project and trying to get those skills basically in-house, is to actually take their own over there. So that's some experiences from larger firms. Then you've got the notion of someone, when overseas development sort of got a bad name in terms of, it's late delivery, the quality's not there. They got smart and they thought, well, let's send our salesperson over to these countries, remote countries, including Australia. There's several operating here in Australia, and we'll have a salesperson representing a software development company. And there's a local office, and you can work with them, where the back end, everything is still happening as the same as the previous model, where all the development is still occurring overseas. They've just got a front end and a shop front, basically saying that we're a local developer. And once again, the one positive about that is you would potentially pay in Australian dollars. That's about as good as it gets. And unless they are offering more services like project management and covering that well, you're still getting the same quality outcome as working directly with an overseas firm.